Perfect. All righty. Calling this meeting to order today at 5:03 p.m. I'm going to start us off with attendance. We've got Alice Williams, Evelyn Roan, Joey Bryant, Brandon Thomas, Jessica Quito, Lola Gallagher, and Bjorn Pelmier. Pelmier, excuse me. Now, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and move forward to the approval of this week's agenda. So I'm just going to go ahead and open to motions on that one.
So moved.
Excellent. We got a motion by Evelyn. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Perfect. Seconded by Brandon. So we've got the agenda approved. We're going to go ahead and move on to the approval of minutes from last week. Do we have any motions on the table for that one?
So moved.
Awesome. So we've got a motion by Evelyn. Do we have a second?
Right here again.
Perfect. Seconded by Brandon. Let's go. So we'll go ahead and move on to reports. All my reports are under the advisors, so I'll go ahead and just move right along to them.
Thank you. I'm going to turn my camera on, although if I turn it off, my video keeps slowing down, and so everything gets choppy. So if I suddenly shut it off while I'm talking, that's why. So yeah, just a few updates as we are wrapping up the quarter. So some stuff I'm going to share via communications received in a minute because we've gotten some feedback on some pieces. The two big ones, and it kind of will segue as you look at information that's on there, but we do have two members of the board who are graduating this quarter. And so that is both exciting and congratulations for them and sad for the rest of us. And so I do want to thank both Judy and Bjorn because they're both graduating this quarter. They've also both been members on the S&A committee now for a while. And so they are returning members and have been here through many variations of things and seen many things come before the committee. And so I just want to, on behalf of the committee and the advisors of the university, just really thank both of you for all of your time with this committee and many other things that we've interacted with outside of this. But in this capacity, really have appreciated all of your time and your insight and your leadership within the committee. And so it will be big spots to fill the vacancy of all of Bjorn's questions every week. And so someone's going to have to step up for that. But no, I've really appreciated the chance to work with both of you and very excited for you both to be graduating. So that is my first update. So congratulations to both of you. The segue into the next part of this is also, there's two parts. One, with that, we do need new student members. I know Brady's not here right now. I believe he's at the Diversity Awards, which is happening right now. And so, which is always a challenge when we move our meeting times to Wednesdays and then they move the awards to Thursdays. So we always conflict with something, but twofold with that, just, and I know we'd alluded to this, but to officially have it in the minutes, we did have a student appointment from earlier in the year who's no longer on the committee. And so Yuritsa Granados is no longer a member on the committee. So we have Yuritsa's position. We still had technically two other vacant positions available. And now we have both Judy and Bjorn's positions. So if you know of any individuals who are interested, even if just for the remainder of spring quarter, and we'll talk about what spring quarter will look like here in a minute, please send their names to Brady and myself, and we'll hopefully get them quickly vetted to make sure they're approved to be able to serve, and then Brady can go through the ASCW process. So that is one thing, so definitely please pass that along as you go within there. The other part is specifically with Judy graduating as the chair, and I've had a chance to already touch base with Alice, so this is not me putting Alice on the spot. But as vice chair, that really means that after this meeting, Alice will be serving as the chair. We'll also be down to only 4 student members until we get other appointments. And so as a reminder that Evelyn, you are the parliamentarian, which means you'll kind of be in the vice chair role if Alice is not around and available. But then hopefully we'll get a few other students joining us here soon. So it's not just Alice, Evelyn, Brandon, and Brady. as we go into spring quarter. Because we do have a couple things. We have a couple, just so you all know, as we go into the spring meeting schedule convo. There are a couple supplemental requests that had been submitted by base funded, or at least individuals who identified they were with base funded units. I'm waiting to meet with them to clarify, because some of them were for things from a while ago. Are these really still pending requests? And also then once I find out, yes, I need to actually talk to those S&A budget managers because they're not the ones who submitted the request to verify. So there might be a couple supplemental requests that come to the committee spring quarter. We may also see a few business related items with some base funded units, knowing some of the stuff we had talked about in the fall that had been approved with the rollback of any unspent funds. There may be units coming to request funding that stays for some large things in the summer or fall if they're planning. And then we have some program review pieces. So that's what's on the docket for spring. So people are aware with that. Before I go into the spring meeting schedule part, any comments, questions, or anything on what I've already given updates, reports on? Awesome. So the spring meeting schedule, I want to touch base with you all with where we're at, just to get some. We do not need to do anything with this, but just as a point of order, we did adjust our meeting schedule earlier in the year. And so we had it set up to where we were meeting, as you all know, every other week, starting in November, at least through winter quarter. We still tentatively now have spring quarter, this is our last meeting for winter quarter because we don't meet during finals week. And so our next meeting will be March 30th when we come back the first Thursday of spring quarter. The calendar, because of what you all approved in November, really only went through winter quarter of every 2 weeks. And so we currently have set up on the calendar weekly meetings in spring quarter. And so that's something for you all. I wanted to put it out there, knowing we don't have anything currently on the docket other than program reviews. And I'm going to give some feedback in a minute. So maybe wait until after communications received, but to put it out for consideration of, we can keep them as weekly meetings as needed. If we don't need them, great, we'd still show up and we would need quorum to show up. Approve the agenda from the minutes, be there for any public comment, and then close out. As both Bjorn and Judy know, that happened a few times last year. At least in those scenarios, we did not have any public comments, but so wanted to provide the opportunity for anything that might be coming up. Or as we look at what we're really having on the docket, we can move it to every two weeks as well. So something to consider, but just as a reminder, as it stands right now, we will have weekly meetings scheduled for spring quarter. And you can look on the S&A website where the agenda and the minutes and everything are, and it shows all of our upcoming meetings as it stands right now. So putting that out there, I'll answer questions if you all have them, but I'd wait until after, because there was some recommendation and feedback that I do want to share under communications received that relates to the program reviews that could impact how you all want to look at things spring quarter. Awesome. That's all that I got right now then, Judy.
Alrighty, perfect. Thank you for all that information, Joey, and sad to leave, but bigger, greater things, something like that. We'll figure it out. Seeing as, do we have any updates from ACWU or just no rep this week? Oh, okay.
Nothing that I saw officially come in. I would say they are still having their meetings. And so they'll have their public meetings on Monday for anyone who is interested in attending. They are currently doing, in spring quarter, they're setting their schedule right now. But every other week they're all public meetings, but every other week is alternating between being in the Cirque Pit and being up in the ACW conference room. And so definitely check in there. They did just host, for any of you who volunteered, thank you, but who got a chance to the Second Harvest event that they had yesterday outside the music building, which was great. They had Second Harvest come in and were able to distribute out some food items to students, but also community members there. And they had, the email I had early this morning is we had, and this was just students, was under 300, but 200 and something students We didn't have the final number for including community members and families within that. So they are looking, and it is now shared, so I'll share it here. They are planning on coming back with second harvest in May. I think it's May 17th for another one. So kudos to them on that.
Yeah, awesome. That's fantastic. I just saw that. I didn't see the numbers though. That's really great. A lot of people helped out. Perfect. Well, with that in mind, I'll go ahead and move forward to communications received. First up, we have the SES S&A directors, annual reports, and program reviews. I assume that's, you're going to dive into that, Joey?
Awesome. Yes, it is. And I was looking to quickly see if I can pull up the exact number of second harvest really quick, because they sent it to the volunteer group this morning. So I will tell you this before I segue. No, that's not it. Just kidding. Who knows? Oh, here it is. Second harvest, they reached 287 students based on their count. That wasn't counting community members or the number of families who were provided, but 287 students came out and were able to receive the items from that, which is fantastic. And there's a great volunteer turnout as well. So again, thanks everyone. So communications received, and so this was a verbal one really to share with you all. So this is within the Student Engagement and Success Division under our VP of Student Engagement and Success. The directors who receive S&A funding, and there's a group of them, have started meeting this year monthly to touch base on budget pieces, cover procedure, some policy stuff, and just kind of be up to speed. One of our most recent meetings was just last week, maybe. But in that, we were talking about pieces coming up, and one of their requests and recommendations had to do with the annual reports and the program reviews. And so for the context of everyone here as a reminder, but also for anyone watching the recording later, our annual financial reports are required by the state. We've had those since S&A has existed. And those always come in after the fiscal year is done, because we're reporting out on what was allocated and what was spent. So those are actual things that we have to report after the close of a fiscal year. And so that's what we're reviewing right now, right? That we're going through. That's what you all have been looking at. The program reviews are actually something that the S&A committee added, I want to say 2 years ago. Maybe it was 3. Time blurs for me. But I think we worked on it 2 years ago of developing these, which was to delve more deeply into the base funded units, based on some feedback from students, as well as the S&A base funded units and the committee wanting to spend more time focusing on those base funded units than what was being spent on supplemental before. And so really delving into what was the money being spent on, how are they assessing the effectiveness of their programs, who's using the programs. And so there was a series of questions developed. And again, I believe it was 2 years ago, the committee started working on those and sending those out. And we instituted that as a regular thing last year for this current base funding unit or quadrennium cycle, that we would send it out annually. And there were some tweaks made last year from what we had the first year. However, those program reviews that we send out have always been sent out and asked for the current year. And so I say this being as a point of reference, the annual reports we're looking at today coming up are last fiscal year's wrap-ups. It's what they spent money on. The program reviews that everyone also had to submit back in January are for this current year, asking what is it you're having trouble with, what are you spending money on, those types of things. One of the requests from that group was kind of a twofold. It was one, so I'll say the first one and then the second request. If the program reviews aren't going to really be looked at until spring quarter or the end of winter quarter, next year, can we consider changing the due date and time of it? That's something we can talk with next year's committee on, for sure. The annual reports are built into our policy, so those are due December 1st, no matter what. And again, that's tied to our state requirements. The kind of feedback that then came from this is there potentially a way that we can align the annual reports and program reviews, which may create kind of a refresh year, to where the committee is looking at the annual reports and program reviews together, and they're both for the same year. So what that might mean is the program reviews that we have right now are for this fiscal year, next December, the annual reports will be for this fiscal year. And so is there some ability that we can have and maybe using next year as the refresh period of sending out, and I'll pick on Lola because Lola's here, giving publicity. Great, here's the program review you all submitted last year in January. Can you take a look at it? Are there any changes or things that happened those last 6 months? But then just kind of tweak it or say, nope, this still looks good and accurate. And then the committee would look at the financial report, annual report, and the program review together. That it would be just one document that gets submitted. We would add those questions onto there, but then it also allows them to be making sure they're answering questions in the correct year, because that always gets confusing. I will tell you, we get lots of questions on that, but also frees you all up as the committee of what you're looking at, knowing that you're looking at the same year. And we haven't jumped into program reviews yet, but it can get slightly confusing being, right now we're looking at last year, next month we're going to be looking at this year, but it's going to be the same groups. So that was the communication, is can we consider and think about either changing the due date of time, but really the larger request was maybe streamlining and combining those into one annual report process that's for the same year. So something to consider and put out. I don't know if there are questions you all might have that I can try and answer about that, or thoughts behind it. Or both Bjorn and Judy, I know you were on the committee before, and so you've been through this a little bit where we look at annual reports and then program reviews. And so I don't know your experience or recollection from last year.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, oh, sorry, Bjorn raised his hand, go for it.
No, not a problem. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I haven't quantified it, so I don't know exactly, but I think the program reviews took a little bit longer just because it's the questions I feel it can be super open-ended, and then we need specifics, and it's a whole back and forth. And like I remember with, I think we did this Monastash, don't come for me. And the student, oh, there was another one too, the art gallery, where we had people come in and talk more about it. So they can take a bit more time is my only concern with that. But I mean, combining them, I think could be a good idea, just because they're both, I feel like, pretty long processes. So I think it would take the same amount of time, just more put together, if you will. Yeah, go for it, Bjorn.
I also like the idea of combining them, although, excuse me, to give multiple points of reference, it went in one session, basically. As Judy kind of alluded to with the time, that might presumably, if the two of them right now they take winter and then spring, doing them together would take winter and spring, which means that alphabetically, the later programs are going to get a review much later in the fiscal year. The other thing I would worry a little bit about would be, I've liked the program reviews because they've given us a little more of a current picture, a little bit. But that could go one way or the other. I wouldn't mind extending the due date on those and doing it in spring to like give a more current date, but it might be worth collating them with the annual reports.
Yeah, I totally agree with Bjorn, and kind of piggybacking off of with the alphabetical organization, making it maybe a little harder. Like, since I feel like both of the program reviews that we reviewed and needed people to come in, they were kind of in the middle last year. And I think that it would have been nice to kind of get over that and then go through the ones where we just look through it, super quantified, just kind of get through that and just start with the ones that might need a little more help. And then they'll also have more time before June to go over and review that. I think it would be good to just make a note of whoever we might have needed extra information from in previous years, and just look at them earlier in the year. And then also any base funded units that request it, we just put them at the beginning, and then the rest is alphabetized because they didn't say anything. We didn't know anything that they needed to add. Yeah, go for it, Bjorn.
It's also worth noting a little bit that doing the program reviews a little bit later allows us to respond to things that happen in the latter half of the year. Like last year, the cuts didn't start to take effect until a little later on, and we started to see that in the later program reviews. So that might be worth considering, allowing for more. Well, nothing moves fast when funding is involved, but faster, I guess.
I think that's all great. I think with what we can do, my recommendation is, I think as we start looking at the ones, because we're already on the docket, right? We've already received them, so we're going to take a look at them spring quarter. But I think keeping this request in the back of our minds, because we can put forward a request or recommendation for next year's committee. I will say the one part, even with what you just said, that kind of goes is, I also know this challenges last year as we did program reviews, we did them spring quarter. That also meant that some of the requests for information and feedback did not get sent out until after the committee had already been concluded and wrapped up, because we went all the way through. And so there's definitely many who did not get feedback or requests for information until later. So it is a double-edged sword. I think we can look at things. I think the other part is, in just putting this here now as we're discussing it, is I think we can also look, and I would recommend we look over the program review questions if we're going to do that, knowing that most of them will be asked after the year is done, but maybe there's adding a question about anything currently going on or that you're anticipating different in the current year that may raise questions from the committee as well. So there's still some tweaking or adapting we can do slightly to it, but yeah.
Oh, I did have a question. Are we able to start committee before October and then kind of look at things in the middle of the year, then have a little bit of time for information requests up until June? Would that maybe be an option?
So the only drawback we have, honestly, of getting the committee is getting students appointed. And so the challenge, and this is just for reference, because also I'm going to ask all of you to be soliciting for people for next year as we get closer to the end of the year, is student government appointments. Technically, we're supposed to get appointments by the second or third week of fall quarter, but they have to go through the vetting process to make sure they're good academic standing. ASCW has to nominate them. The vice president appoints them. And then once we get the committee formed, our first two meetings are our training meetings. And so the challenge we have had for the last decade that I've advised the committee has always been getting those appointments. I think the fastest we have gotten them, where the students have all been appointed, is within the first 2 weeks. That still means once we then get everyone appointed, great, they're all on here. We don't start business until a month into the quarter. But if we're able to help student government get members as early as possible, we can definitely get started earlier too.
Gotcha. Noted. So yeah, tell your friends. Sounds great. Yeah, it's rough. I feel like, yeah, I wasn't sure because I know like it says we start in October. I wasn't sure if that was like part of our CWU or yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, do we have any more thoughts on that? Ways to optimize the process from the committee? Yeah, go for it, Bjorn.
For what it's worth, it seems to me that it should be either combining the program reviews and annual reports or moving the submission date for the program reviews later, because it's a question of whether you want them to be more holistic or more current, I guess. Seems to be the best way I can put it.
No, I'd agree, Bjorn. I think the other part is the reality of the annual reports are due December 1st, which is the end of fall, meaning you all come back and take a look at them in winter. But if we're not changing the way we do that, that means that's winter quarter, meaning you're not going to get to the program reviews until spring. So is there really a need to have those submitted to us at the start of winter quarter if we're not looking at them till later? I will also tell you annual reports reviews have looked very different depending on the year of the committee. I'm sure, and now I blur the years together, but I know it's while Bjorn was on the committee, maybe even your first year, Judy, our annual reports on a few of those only took 1 or 2 meetings because it's pretty quickly like, great, everyone look, does anyone have any questions? Do we want to talk about this one? Nope, 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 nope. Great, moving on to the next thing. I appreciate you all taking time, making sure you're reviewing them. So I would not recommend we go to that process in any way, but yeah. No, I think that's a good point, Bjorn, is it's either doing them together as one solidified review as making the most sense, or more intentionally separating and figuring out the timing of when they're turned in. If there's nothing else, I can jump to the next communication received if you want, Judy.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so the other one, and we may get something coming up later on. We did get a communication received, and I have another one to share that I didn't put on here that I should have, because I don't think I had brought it up last week since we weren't doing communications received. So this one, we had a student who reached out, just questions and concerns about S&A funding was the initial part. Really what they were reaching out about, and I've been providing some clarification, have a meeting coming up, was they wanted to come to the S&A committee because they were under impression they could get supplemental funding for student club travel and some other pieces. And so trying to redirect them about the process for that, or from departmental travel aspects. But they were really wanting reimbursement for some of the pieces. And so they reach out. I did offer, they have the ability to let them know they can come to provide public comment if they want to share just their perspective or their concerns for the committee at any point. It's really not anything that we can provide supplemental funding for, but we could hear whatever their concerns are, given that obviously we provide base funding to the RSO ICA, who provides club funding and some of these other aspects. So we do have a meeting set up coming up sometime in the near future. We've been emailing a lot today. So they may come and join us though at a future meeting to give public comments. So that's all we have right now.
Sounds good. Go for it, Bjorn.
You said reimbursement. I'm hoping and praying that they didn't spend the money already.
I believe so. I mean, I don't want to go into the details necessarily until they would get here.
Okay.
I think they went on a trip and then we're seeking to get supplemental funding after the fact.
Oh man, I hope it doesn't put them too far in the hole.
Yeah, go for it, Evelyn.
So if I think I know what you're talking about, Joey. The mock trial club, we just went to competition, and one of the parents ended up having to spend like $1,000 or so of his own money on hotel rooms and whatnot. So I know that some of the people in that club have been pretty upset and they weren't sure where to turn. And I'm glad that they reached out to somebody, you know, if that's who we're talking about.
And I don't know. I don't think it, but it may be. So that's because I don't have the details yet on what the specific, but I think it may be a different one than what that is. So I think some of this is similar to what we've talked about with some of the pieces, which again, we know we heard when there was a supplemental funding request for ICA RSO was just, they were getting down on funds. And so I know there were requests they didn't approve. I don't know the mock trial specifics of that one, so I don't know if theirs was one that wasn't approved or if it's one that they spent the money and now we're looking for their options to get refunded. I don't know, but definitely as much as we can do to help make people aware of what the process is ahead of time. Because again, I hate to see these types of situations happen when people aren't aware.
Yeah, I was the one who received the communication. So I guess for the sake of clarity, it's not mock trial, but that is really interesting that it's the same, you know, like, yeah, but no, it's not, but yeah, here's hoping we can, I really think we should have some resources on the website or something. I know it'll be a lot of work to get it all on paper, but yeah, because it can be kind of confusing. Joey, did you want to go over that other bit of communication?
Yep. Yeah, the other one, and I don't believe I've gone over this because I think it came in after our last meeting. If I did, then just everyone pretend that I'm not repeating myself, and we'll add it to the minutes. The other one is we did get official approval back from Jill Clucking, CFO, approving the 3 supplemental requests that we move forward. So all three of those were approved. Those areas were notified that yes, the funding has officially been approved, and so they can move forward with the student appreciation with campus activities and KCWU, as well as the additional funding for RSO ICA. So officially letting you all know, report back.
Very exciting, very exciting. Headliners in the midst. Let's see. Super excited. It's gonna be awesome. Do you have any more communications received to go over, or no? Perfect. We'll go ahead and move forward to the first call for public comment. Cue Jeopardy music. Awesome, awesome. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into new business. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap up the annual funding reports. So we'll go ahead and get started with the scheduling center. Jessica, are you ready to share screen on that one?
Joey, are you able to do that, or do you want me to do it?
I can. I don't have it pulled up and ready. So if you do, go for it. Otherwise, I'll pull them up in the background.
I don't have it pulled up either.
I'll go ahead. Give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
I have them pulled up. I could do it.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Bjorn.
Okay, let me just close the tab playing Foreign Zevon in the background, and I will share. Oh no, host disabled participant screen sharing. Okay, never mind.
Try again.
Okay.
You beat me to it. I was clicking the button right as you were trying.
Okay, yeah, this is actually Student Funds Financial Manager. I can scroll through the scheduling center now.
Perfect, perfect. So do we have any questions, comments, concerns on this one? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll go ahead and have us move forward to the student funds finance. Oh, go for it, Bjorn.
Sorry, it's hard to raise my hand with this thing sharing. Up at the top, it mentions a PID. What's a PID in this context?
Yeah, Joey, do we have clarification on that?
I'm trying to think of the acronym that the PID stands for. It's this budget.
Okay.
But it stands for something specific that for the life of me, I can't think of what the acronym is.
Fair enough.
Yeah, we can make a note of it to this. So it's just the budget that they're pulling from, right? Or different kind of, oh, okay, never mind. Moving on to the next one.
I will say this one's a pretty straightforward one because this only funds the student funds financial manager position, the professional salary and wages.
I do have one question. So I know that CWU clubs, if you go down to the positive balance at the end of the first page there, it says that it was mostly room rentals were the costs. So do we not have the same privileges as like clubs and orgs for free room rentals?
So on our end, we do have the room. However, when we are renting rooms, we still have to pay for the equipment, which is the same as clubs and orgs. And so In the past, we would have a space in the circ, which again, we can utilize because of obviously the S&A funding aspect. However, we would always typically have the equipment. The other part that's not on here is we'd have equipment for the computer, for the monitor setup, for if we're doing the telepieces, and then any potential for like light refreshments or other things that might be there as well. And so moving virtual, we've not needed to use or expend those funds. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
On a similar one, we also, when we were in person, would have public affairs come in and do photos of the individual committee members and committee at large, which were all nice to have nice professional headshots. However, was a cost piece and not something that was deemed by the committee necessary. One, given that we're virtual, but also in the financial crunch that we were in. While yes, that's nice to have, was not a necessity. That was the other part when it mentions the professional pictures that were taken before.
Yeah, do we have any more questions, comments, concerns for this one?
This little thing here, the CWU goods, it is that for a forecast return to physical meetings, or?
That, are you looking at for the 23?
Yeah.
On the forecast. So that's just left in there. This was because again, the end of last year, because it was not determined or decided. And so like similarly, I'm sure as we do fiscal 24 right now, it would look like there was still that 1,600 for goods in the event that were decided to be done. But that's also likely where reduction pieces when we've been doing the 5 and 10% reductions are coming out of.
Okay. And then this ending fund balance, is that the additional allocation that was intended for the physical room? Is that adding up with the already existing 1.7K?
Again, are you looking at 23 where you have the 1.7 that's ending at 483?
Yeah, I mean this came from last year, so this is like the next annual allocation.
Yeah. So again, the hard part is as you're looking the fiscal 22 actuals. So like this one on here has the 5% reduction that was taken. The forecast showed the full allocation. It didn't necessarily have built in the 5 or 10% reduction that we know was going to happen at the start of the year. So it's including that 16, but also there's those other aspects that the actuals are going to be the more accurate when we get to the end of the year on what it was. So the hard part is, again, that we're only looking at the 22 right now, but I know that the 23 is on there, so it's hard to ignore.
Yeah, so this will likely be much lower if it's positive at all. Okay.
Well, and actually with this one, it will probably be higher because the position is vacant, because this is Lacey's position. Yeah.
Right.
And since Lacey is still at the university, but in a different role and capacity, they're searching for this position currently. So there'll be a little bit of salary savings. So that will probably be a lower amount of expenses given the brief gap.
And that'll roll back?
Yep.
Okay.
Good stuff. Any more questions, comments, concerns? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll have us go ahead and move over to the report for Slice. Any questions, comments, concerns, pleas of rage? Yeah, go for it, Alice.
Is it just me, or is that a lot of program manager rollovers? Do they normally have program managers go over that frequently?
So are you looking under that question one, the vacancy?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can be. The hard part is the question was really only asking for vacancies longer than 6 months, which the only one that gets close to it is the director role.
Oh,
So
I see. One of those is director, not
yeah.
program.
Well,
Okay.
and so here's the problem is we did have one program manager who had left. We hired anyone. There are two program managers and a program coordinator in Slice. They hired a new program manager at the start of that year. One of the other program managers, Amber Hofer, ended up moving into the director role partway through the year. And so then
Okay.
to fill her role is when they ended up hiring Tommy into the role. And so there's really the transition of one program manager and one director, but then it shifted all the pieces. So, I mean, it
I
looks like a lot, and I know it feels like a lot to that office too. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon for the areas when we have program managers or coordinators. Yeah.
I see that detail now of the Amber moving over. I didn't notice that. Thank you.
Not a question because I know the answer to it, but I want to point out for the committee because this may come up. If you look under the question, please provide an explanation for the positive or negative fund balance. One of the questions that's on there, it's actually further down. If you go, oh, yeah, right there. One of the pieces, as you note, the second part of that is cat camp, which takes place during the summer. It was intended and budgeted, planned to come. Last year's cat camp was intended to come out of fiscal 22. However, with the planning and things of that, those expenses didn't hit the budget before the end. So there were some expenses that they had intended to hit out of 22 that did not hit there. So they hit for this year. So I say that one because they do mention it, but I know it's kind of buried in here. That may also come up as a factor for the committee next quarter, because again, cat camp falls in this in between, and knowing the fund balances aren't going to be able to keep carried forward unless they request it. If they're not able to do their planning and get those things to hit this fiscal year, they may need to come in and ask. Or they'll be playing catch up each year, a year behind. So.
Yeah, thanks for that insight, Joey. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns for Slice? Yeah, go for it, Bjorn.
A little bit further up, I noticed the 3 student marketing coordinator positions, and I was wondering how they managed to make room for those, especially given the 5% and now 10% drop in funding. I mean, these certainly seem to be effective positions, judging by this. I'm not used to seeing people adding positions in this economy.
I think that's a great question, Jessica, if you can make note, because I don't want to answer for them or misspeak on it. I think it's a great point, right? And that's a great catch on that, Bjorn, because I think those are things, as you all are looking and reviewing, asking the question, because if it comes back, okay, well, what then was the offset to get those 3 positions added? What was it that you didn't end up doing, or positions that might have been eliminated? And then that's where they can give us some feedback on what their priorities were or where that fell. And you all would say, hey, yes, that meets what we think the need of S&A funding is, or hey, no, understand, but given the budget pieces, we would recommend X, Y, and Z, right? Using other services or resources.
Is there a reason Lincoln Elementary School bingo is in yellow or highlighted, that is?
Not that I know of. That can be another question.
Fair enough. And I'll scroll down to the
I will just also share on this one, when you look at the projected beginning and ending fund balances are pretty high. They allude to this up above with the answer. Some of that had to do with, again, what I shared with expenses for CAT camp. Some of that and a good chunk of that had to do with salary savings from positions in those vacancies that they had mentioned, which added. And then they were also one of the ones similar to the Diversity Equity Center who were given the directive last year to not to be frugal in their spending on certain things, and so did not necessarily overexpend or do some of the bigger things that weren't absolute priorities. And so I can let you know that they were given a very different directive this year to spend, to put on programs, to use as much of that goods and services budget for student engagement opportunities. So, but that's also going to be a pretty large amount that's going to get rolled back at the end of the year to the S&A General, based on the projections.
It just occurred to me, this may be completely needless worrying, but that's my middle name. With bad debt, does bad debt affect the university's credit rating or that organization's credit rating or anything? Okay.
And I guess Bjorn could see me shaking my head. For the recording, you couldn't. It's and I don't want to misquote it, so maybe one of our accounting students or someone else, if Lacey's here, could say it. It's not what you would think of in a general world of like bad debt. It's an accounting terminology that means something different. I was waiting for you, Brandon. I didn't want to put you on the spot.
Here, go for it, Brandon.
Yeah, bad debt expense is basically just when bad debt is what we use to make it for accounts receivable when we can't actually collect on the debt that somebody owes us. We've determined that it's just uncollectible, so we just have to write it off as an expense because we thought it was going to be revenue, and it turned out it wasn't.
That's a great way. Thank you for describing that much better than I would have been able to say.
Yeah, any more questions, comments, concerned on this report? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll have us move over to student union operations.
and you all are about to look at a couple that are going to be similar in that they're pretty straightforward operational pieces. Again, a little bit different than some of the ones we've seen before. As we look at student union operations, student union custodial, student union engineering, even student union accounting as well. And so it'll be a little bit different than some of the ones you've seen before.
Alrighty, any comments, concerns for this report? Cool, cool. Seeing none, I'll have us move over to the student union building accounting. Yeah, make sure to just email Lacey your questions. I'm just kidding.
Right off the bat, one thing that came to me is just a verbiage question. Has 2 full-time S&A funded positions, 1 position funded from other sources, and 3 student employees. Are they funded from S&A or other sources? I could probably scroll down and find that out, actually.
I mean, yes, you could and you'll see it, Bjorn. Those student positions are funded by S&A funds. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll see it under the student temporary overtime line under expenses and salaries.
Speaking of which, why are student temporary and overtime lumped together? I mean, student and temporary, I understand, but overtime.
I don't have an answer for that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, go for it, Brandon.
I could give you an estimated guess on why student temporary and overtime are together. Just because those students would be primarily the one, if they're full-time students, but even then, it's a little bit weird. But overtime, I've seen when I looked at the financial statements of what's the store in the circ that everyone goes to for books? I'm blanking on the name.
Wildcat Shop.
Yes, the Wildcat Shop. Even that, obviously they employ students, but it is kind of just lumped together because obviously usually salary are not able to accrue overtime. Temporary and students are hourly rates, which are required to have overtime past a certain point. So I think it's just for general sake labeling.
Good stuff. Any more questions, comments, concerns for the sub accounting? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll have us move over to custodial. Alrighty, yeah. Any questions on custodial's report? Perfect. Seeing none, I'll have us move over to engineering. Okay, actually, I have a question for this one. Okay, so we went through this in the program reviews last year, and they say the 1.3 million people counted via door counters. Is that the same metric that they were putting in their program reviews last year? Do we have clarification on that? So I remember it just said 1.3 million people, and I was like, that's not at one time. What is that? So is that metric just repeated over?
So I can actually answer this because this came up at the recent CERC governance meeting with student government. So we, and for those who don't know, the CERC actually has built in at all the entrances an automatic counter, and it can keep track of whether you're coming in or going out. And so it's not just a motion sensor and it duplicates. And so the 1.3 million people, and that can be duplicate though, it's not unique. And so if Judy ran in to get lunch and then left and came back to go to the Wildcat shop and then left and then came in to go to the rec center and then left and then came in for a meeting, that's one student, but those are going to be 4 different identifiers on there. And so it's coming from those door monitors that go through there. And this is the incoming count of the 1.3 million.
Okay, awesome. So it's essentially 1.3 million points of interaction.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in the sense of coming through the doors to come in. We don't know, again, how many are unique. We don't necessarily know how many are, and again, being a public building, right, how many are students versus faculty or staff versus public community members within there. Within that, it's all just the number of bodies that come into the door. Yeah.
Cool. That's good to know. I remember that was very confusing last time. Yep. Any more questions, comments, concerns for engineering? Alrighty, seeing none, let's go ahead and move over to theater arts. Any questions, comments, concerns so far? Cool. Alrighty, seeing no commentary, I'll go ahead and move us over to the University Centers report.
And I guess while people are looking, I'm going to say this for the sake of the recording. Anyone who's watching the recording, if you can't quickly view this, there's a lot of good detail, and sometimes there's no questions because they did a great job of answering any questions we would have. Like I will say, theater arts did a good job of explaining, like, again, why there weren't students employed and the production and all that. So please don't take no questions as anything other than they did a great job covering stuff.
Exactly, and they're all listed on the S&A website, so if you have anything you want to look at specifically, they're all up there. Alrighty, any questions for the university centers? All right. Oh, actually, go Brandon.
This is pretty cut and dry, but I guess I would just like to know, they talked about student position vacancies and trying to be back at full capacity. Did they have like a goal date set for that? And are they possibly evaluating what full capacity means now that we're out of the COVID era? Because not everything has changed, but a significant amount of positions aren't even necessary anymore for situations. I guess a little more detail on the filling of vacancies would be nice.
Yeah, just
I
like
think
which.
that's oh, go ahead, Judy. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say exactly. Yeah. Which staff positions? And I was also gonna ask if up to the first question of their main focuses. Bjorn, if you don't mind scrolling to the top there. I was just curious if that's because I know that the mission and values, all of that is still being sort of moved around or it's in development. Is there any chances they're going to change with the mission and values and just kind of any information they have on that? Because I can tell they kind of align with a lot of the proposed ideas that aren't yet solidified.
And so you're talking when they talk about developing activities focused on those 4 distinct areas, right, Judy?
Yeah, 4 distinct areas, and then like community outreach, retention, progression and completion, campus connections. Yeah, I'm just curious if those are interrelated at all.
No, I think we can add both of those, Brandon's and yours, as questions to put out to them. I think the one part that is not noted on here.
Oh, Joe, it looks like your microphone muted there.
Sorry. I clicked the button as I was trying to talk. One of the things is that I didn't see them note here, and I'm trying to remember if it's in their program review or on the West Side student affairs that we'll get to, but I want to note as we're looking at it is that again, that these are for doing some of those activities pieces they talked about. The part as a reminder for anyone who's an Ellensburg-based student is that at our centers, COVID protocols actually lasted longer in terms of they did not return to in-person at many of those community colleges until this academic year. And so last academic year, most of them were still operating remote or in very tight restrictions at those institutions. So again, doesn't seem like it had an impact because what was on there, but I thought I would mention and bring that up because it, to me, seems like that would have an aspect when they're talking about doing activities and programming. So just for you all to be aware.
Yeah, any more questions, comments, concerns for the university centers? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll go ahead and have us move over to see the university recreation. Any questions for Rec? Yeah, go for it, Brandon.
Eventually, you'll get to the student activities funds budget summary, and just for the recording, in case there aren't anyone familiar with variance. Variance is just the difference between the budget amount and the actual amount. It is a little bit tricky because you'll see the budget summary and then you scroll down to the very bottom and then you have similar colors talking about similar accounts, but it is different format because of the 23 forecast.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for the clarification, Brandon. Yeah, any more questions, comments, concerns? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll go ahead. Oh, go ahead, Brandon. Sorry, Josiah.
I guess I would just be a little bit curious why they budgeted 436,000 in sales and services. It's like what they use to calculate that budget, because that is a variance of 200,000, almost 300,000, which negatively too. So that's not too good. So I guess I'd just be curious where they got that budgeted amount. Now that we can see their actual amount.
I think that's, again, a great question we can add, because also, and that's looking at the comparison, but the one you're on, Bjorn, is looking at even they forecasted and budgeted for this year to have sales and services, not quite to the same amount, but still up 337,000. And so, is that more accurate? Was last year, because of the things they noted, that it dropped beyond what they anticipated, or what? Yeah. What are they basing their sales and services forecast on, to get a better sense of why it was so dramatically off?
Yeah, great question. Big numbers, a lot to think about for sure. Perfect. Any other questions, comments, concerns for this report? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll go ahead and have us move over to the Veterans Center. Can we get a zoom in on that font, please? Thank you, Bjorn. Alrighty, yeah. Any questions for the Veterans Center funding report?
I'm not sure, did they account for this beginning fund balance, the negative beginning fund balance in the report? I suppose it doesn't matter very much now because they seem to have recouped it, but
Well, and honestly, the odd part with this, Bjorn, is this is also the first year. So we'd have to look back. It's the first year of the base funding cycle was last year.
Yeah, I can't
so-
remember them asking to roll over a negative amount.
It should have. So there was probably something minor that had hit potentially right as we were rolling it over. So while it's on there, I think for the sake of anyone who can't see, it's the negative 1,200. I would consider that pretty much a wash when we're looking at the larger budget. But I think that's a good question. We can still ask, like, why was that there, more from an accounting reason?
Yeah, great point. Yeah, any more questions, comments, concerns? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll have us move over to second to last, West Side Student Affairs.
First immediate question is, will be filled January 16th, 2023. Just confirmation, sending a message from the future. Did that work?
Yeah, it is an oddly specific date. Maybe it was a start date. I'm not sure.
I believe that was the answer. Again, we can reach out to Azra to clarify, did they actually, but that was the anticipated start date. Because again, they had to submit these by December 1st. So
Gotcha. Perfect. Oh yeah, what's up, Brandon?
As you see in the explanation, it says we have the 163,996 programming carry forward from the previous year, but the beginning fund balance on the statement has negative 1,000.
So this, I'll give a brief answer to this, Brandon. This is kind of what I referenced earlier when I was talking about the annual reports and program reviews.
Okay.
They were answering it because they were forgetting the annual report was looking at fiscal 22, and they referred to it as that was their ending fund balance for what we're looking at. But then completing this in November, we're viewing it as a beginning fund balance for now this current fiscal year.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the clarification. I was just making sure that it wasn't just like, because we did have a statement like this before, but it was not for the same reasons.
I'm a little bit confused that per the rollover, or the rollback policy, S&A took back 129,000, but they also had 163,000 carry forward. And I'm just confused how some could have rolled back and some could have rolled forward at the same time. Unless I'm getting mixed up on the years.
Let me try and answer it. So we have not instituted, we just passed that this year for the rollback of the carry forward. So that hasn't gone into effect yet. What they are referencing is, and we even updated this other one, is any positions that were vacant for 6 months, the salary savings for those 6 months would roll back to the S&A reserve. And so on this one, they mention both. I mean, you can look on the question number one. There's several positions that were vacant, and so all of that salary savings, 6 months and on, all of that rolled back, which was a total of $129,000 in salary savings that went back to S&A, given our long existing policies. So nothing that we passed this year with the 1 month starting rollback and the end of the year carry forward, those haven't gone into effect yet. So hypothetically, though, if what they have listed on here for 23, if they end the year with $205,000 in their account, like what it was projected, all of that 205 would roll back to the general. The other part, and I'll let you all know in advance, and this is going to be more for whoever returns to the committee next year or who joins and jumps on to see where we're at, is we will be trying to keep track at the end of the year how much was rolled back as a result of salary savings and how much was rolled back as a result of unspent goods and services. So we can have a breakdown. And so like looking at this, if we're looking at West Side Student Affairs and they roll back $205,000, how much of that was because salaries, they couldn't fill the position, and how much of it was goods and services that they didn't spend either for programming or equipment or things. So trying to give a more clear picture on what was left kind of on the table and why.
Good stuff. Do we have any more questions, comments, concerns for West Side? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll go ahead and have us move to the Wildcat Sports Radio Network. That'll be our last funding report for the night. No, at all. Yeah, go for it, Brandon.
So they mentioned about having a positive balance at the end of the year, that it was due to providing coverage for 4 sports only, and that they could collaborate with with more clubs and sports in the future. I guess my question would be, are they wanting to? Because could is a very loose word and means the difference between a bunch of other things. And also, if they are planning on doing that, is it going to be one sport at a time to see how it affects the budget? Are they going all in? And if they go into debt, they go into debt. Or I guess because there's not too much information in this, I would like, I guess, just a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like some parts are a little bit vague, so it'd be good to have that information. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Flights of Rage? It's the last report, so get them out now.
Elaborating on that, by my aging memory, I don't remember. I seem to recall that the Wildcat Sports Radio Network had the same allocation from the fiscal year 18 quadrennium to the 21 quadrennium. And I'm wondering what sports they dropped that they no longer expend their full allocation in covering these 4 sports. I assume that was pandemic related, but it just seems like I'm pretty sure that their allocation, it definitely didn't increase. So
that is a great question, Bjorn, and I know they can answer it. I'm also trying to make use of our handy dandy plethora of info on our website, and I'm going back to their annual reports that are on our website from the last quadrennial cycle to look and see what we have in here for information. So I can tell you from their fiscal 20, so again, 2 years before, Wildcat Sports Radio had the opportunity to call men's and women's basketball, football, rugby, soccer, baseball, softball contests. Those were limited due to COVID-19 and some other restrictions that took place. Spring seasons were canceled. However, prior to shutdown, they were able to cover all football contests, as well as the basketball, men's and women's basketball, and multiple rugby home contests. So there was a broader array. I think if what I recall, and this is where we can ask for more clarification though, because I think this came up in their base funding request, is also just with the partnership with athletics. I think there's also some rights pieces and streaming pieces that could be a factor as well. So.
Yeah, thank you for the insight, Joey. Do you have any more questions, comments? Alrighty, seeing none, I'll go ahead and say we can conclude our annual reports. Thank you all for your wonderful, valuable time on all of those. Great work. Go team, all that good stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and move us into old business, which there is none. So then we'll go to second call for public comment. I'm gonna go ahead and just say thank you all so much. This committee has been phenomenal, really great experience, and I'm really looking forward to, the future and all that good stuff, scary as it might be. And so thank you all again for your time serving on this committee. It's been a pleasure chairing for you all and hearing all the all the funny little things. So add me on LinkedIn, all that good stuff. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Yeah, go for it, Brandon.
I was just going to say I've only been here for a limited amount of time. I have not gotten to spend as much time with you all as you guys have with each other, but I have been wanting to say it's been a pleasure and honor to work with you guys as I can help our community.
Yeah, go for it, Bjorn.
I'm obligated to say a goodbye. I think we did a pretty good job. Judy did a good job. I did a good job. I'll be around. You know where to find me. I have social media. I would like to continue helping. I've enjoyed this. It's felt fulfilling. This is all the good value will get from me.
Well, I second that for sure. Yeah, go for it, Joey.
I have two. One is reiterating what I said earlier, again, a huge thank you to Judy and Bjorn. It's a lot to be on this committee for multiple years, especially going through our base funding cycle previously. It's cannot always feel like the most rewarding committee because you do have to make tough decisions on where funding is going to be allocated, which also means you're making decisions where funding's not going to be allocated. But it's immensely important and critical work. And I hope that you all, especially leaving, but also those of you staying, know that the work that you do is extremely important and has a profound impact on the student experience, not just right now in this year, but also for the years after you're gone. And so I know I'm obviously biased with this committee, but am very, very aware of the relevance and importance of it. And so thank you both immensely. You've been fantastic members, not just being here, and you all have been great this year. So this is not to anyone here, but not just showing up. You're all showing up, you're participating, you're giving insight, you're asking questions, you're considering things. I have seen over the years, both Judy and Beard come out and make a motion and a statement, and then be persuaded with other evidence to go the other way and make the opposite motion and statement. And so it's a fantastic group, and I've really enjoyed getting to watch both of you learn and grow on this. And so thank you immensely. The other one is, again, knowing this is our last meeting for the quarter, and the weather is very weird right now in Ellensburg. So one, try and stay warm and dry if you can, but also good luck on finals. Enjoy your spring break. Hopefully get a chance to disconnect from things and recharge before we come in for the spring quarter. And I will see the rest of you back here for our first meeting of spring quarter. So enjoy your finals and your spring break.
Thank you, Joey. Sorry about that. Goodness, my notifications, perfect timing. So do we have any more public comments before I entertain a motion to adjourn? Or yeah, if not, then you guys can just motion, just go for it, honestly. Have fun with it.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn and just say it's been a pleasure.
Motion to adjourn by Alice. Do we have a second?
I'll go ahead and second that.
Seconded by Evelyn. Oh, awesome. Alrighty. So this meeting is adjourned tonight at 6:29 p.m. Thank you all so much. Lovely meeting and lovely year. So thank you.
Congrats on graduating, you all. Good luck with finals, everyone. See you all at the end of the month.
3 years ago, I think, Christian, the chair my first year, last words I ever heard from him before he signed off the night was good night, tri-state area.
Oh, Bjorn, you will be missed. Have a great night, all.
Thank you.